Let's look at changing files in a project that is controlled by the GitHub repository. You can see my project has some square brackets, and it's telling me that there is a repository called transaction log and that we're working on the master branch for that transaction log. If I go into the code, I can make any kind of changes I want. In this case, let's look at making changes to our unit test. This program happens to be a log, and the log is made up of entries where you can put in some data for those entries. So if I want to update my test to add an entry to my log, I can take my log construction test right here and just go ahead and add an entry. And I can put in some data here. Can change whatever I want on it. And update the code. And just like usual, you can run this code and test it, and everything right now is staying on our local machine. Because these are set up as unit tests, I actually want to run it from the unit test. So I can right click on there and say run as JUnit test. Switches over to the test perspective, and you can see my tests have run, but they're failing. So let's look at why my test is failing. Well, it says I have an assertion error at line 41. Well, on line 41, I'm asserting that in my test log, I have 3 entries. Well, that makes sense. I added a 4th entry, so it should not be passing anymore. So I'm going to update that to 4. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it. And I can rerun it. And now I have my test working again. So let's say I want to push these changes back up to the repository hosted by GitHub in the cloud so that everyone working on this project can see those changes and use those changes. So I'm going to switch back to the Git perspective, and there's this little Git icon tiny up here. And I'm going to go to my staging window. Took a minute for it to figure out that I have changed that log test.java. These things should show up automatically, whatever files that you changed, get in this unstaged area. If you want to share that information to the rest of your team, you want to move that from the unstaged area to the staged area, and you can just drag it in there. Eclipse was a little flaky for me. As I tried to pull the log test.java into the staged changes, it wasn't moving. But I just stopped Eclipse and restarted it, and now I can pull my staged changes down. So when I pull my changed file from unstaged to staged, that's like doing the add command in Git, saying that add this file as something that I want to commit and then potentially push to the server. Once you are ready to commit the change, go ahead and put a descriptive commit message in there. I already typed one in. Add an entry to the log construction test, because that's what I did. I added an entry to my test. And maybe I better make it a little more clear. And this top line is a summary, and if there are more details, then you would want to put that information on the next lines. Now, Eclipse lets you commit and push right away. If you commit and push, the push may fail if someone else has been trying to change that same file. It's safer to just do it one step at a time. So I'm going to just say commit. What that commit did is it changed my local repository. On my machine, not only do I have the code, but I have a clone of the repository in this .git directory. And that's saving all the changes that I made, but it's not pushed up to the cloud yet. If I'm ready to push it up to the cloud, then I can click on this push head button. Or if you had moved away from the screen, you can also go ahead and do a push from the Java perspective. You can just right click on the project, pick teams, and then you can say that you want to push your changes to that master branch on the remote cloud. I can preview to see what's going to happen. I always want to look at merging so I don't throw away other people's changes. If you choose to force overwrite, that means that you're taking the risk to throw away anybody else's changes that they may have made just to prefer your changes. And that defeats the purpose of the version control and merging and cooperation. So it's very rare circumstances that you want to force the overwrite. Gives me a list of the things that are going to be pushed. So I only had one commit, so that one commit is going to be pushed to the server, and then I can click to push it. Tells me that it was successfully pushed, and I can close out and just continue working, go back and change whatever code that I might want to change. If we take a look at that on GitHub, we can look at our transaction log, and you can see that 2 minutes ago that I pushed a change, adding that test for Professor Richard.